And if you don't have one of these 4-prong little sockets, you're going to have one. If you're looking at this video, you probably already have one. But you can get them at any O'Reilly Auto Parts. They're not very much. Probably less than 10 bucks. And that's all she wrote on that. Remember, on the Chevy calipers that are used on these things, you got to put a little grease on the slides and on these bushings that go through there. You know, I was going to show you guys how, without the rotor on here, when you mount the caliper solid in that area, how it can move back and forth. It floats back and forth. It's a floating caliper. And generally, when you feel like you've had a pulsating pedal on your front disc brakes, it doesn't necessarily mean that the rotor is warped, because the caliper will move back and forth to compensate for that. A lot of times it means that the pins have corroded and it's not sliding anymore, and now every movement of the rotor is translated right through the caliper, through the brake fluid to the pedal. So a lot of times it just takes pulling the caliper off, freeing it up, re-greasing it, and putting it back on. Bushings just get shoved in here. This is part of how it floats back and forth. This stuff corrodes and it won't move. And it also slides on this end. There's a bushing or a rubber O-ring inside of there as well. And when this goes through, it allows it to slide. Allows it to slide in position. A little tip about doing brakes on your vehicle: if you ever have the rotors turn, like at O'Reilly or whatever, when they come out of there, they're going to be they're going to have metal shavings on them, and you would think you could hose those things down with some brake cleaner and get the metal shavings off, and you can't. Actually, when that rotor machine, when the brake lathe is cutting the rotors, it's actually magnetizing it to some extent. And all these little bitty fine particles stay embedded in the grooves of the cut. And the best thing to do is to rinse it off with water to demagnetize it. And you might as well get a little soap on there and wash it with some soap and water. That'll help get it nice and clean before you put it on there. It'll rust in a big hurry, but it doesn't matter. Once you put it on there, the brake pads will always keep that clean. These pads also that came with this kit actually, it was from Toms Bronco, great place. The kit in the picture in the catalog showed that the whole kit looked like it was all beautifully anodized, like this backing plate. Looked like the calipers were anodized gold, backing plate, the rotor or the hub housing and everything. And when I called them to check on it, to order it, actually to pay for it, I bought it off eBay from Tom's, but he said it was not anodized, and it's not. Although the picture looks like that, so don't let that be a deciding factor, because it almost was with me. I noticed yesterday when I was putting the hubs on here, I noticed yesterday that when I put this inner clip on the axle and pulled it through, as I tightened the whole hub mechanism, it really binded up this whole area right here. Ended up leaving this inner clip off. That may be why they want you to get some later model hubs. Maybe there's a difference in spacing. Maybe they make the later model locking hub just a hair difference in dimensions in order to work on everything. Not quite sure why. I'm going to leave this off. There's nowhere for it to go. All right, to start with, I'm going to start bleeding the brakes right now. I've got everything all together on it, and I did notice when I had that master cylinder, when I put all that stuff together, that some of the lines were leaking on this thing that went into the portioning valve. I put everything on the right, everything is new. I ended up shifting it around a little bit, tightening it, retightening it, and it seemed to seat okay after that. So I hope that works good. I'll find out when I get to go hammering on the brakes here to bleed them in here in a second and see if there's any leaks anywhere. You got to look for that stuff. Even new lines, you have to just be careful how they can leak. The way I started this, and I'm not sure if it's correct, but I know the calipers are completely empty. And what I did, let me get to the other side over here. What I did is I just cracked open the line, and I've got a cup here, and I'm letting the master cylinder gravity feed and fill the caliper completely up with fluid. And if you notice, they always put the bleeder screw on these things at the highest point of the caliper itself, so that as it's filling up with fluid coming to the top, it's pushing all the air out so it can completely air free in that thing. So I'm waiting for the fluid to come out. I'm going to let that go for just a little while, let it just completely get all that out. And generally with bleeding the brakes, you got to start, even though I didn't do anything to the rear, I'm going to start with the rear and go ahead and bleed those out, since I had to undo all the lines there at the block. So I'm going to start at the furthest point away from the master cylinder, which is the passenger rear tire, driver rear tire, passenger front, and the driver front. And we'll see if we have any brakes. So here we go. Well, I got everything done on it. I want to tell you guys a couple of weird problems I had with it after bleeding. Initially, while I was bleeding, the proportioning valve was leaking, and I was looking all over. I said, man, this thing is leaking out the front of it. Let me show you what I was talking about. Right out the front of this little pressure port. It's got a little rubber cap that goes on it, and if I thought it was leaking out of here, it was just, stuff was going everywhere. And after bleeding for a while, I had a big puddle underneath this thing, and what it turned out to be, after looking on the internet at problems maybe with this proportioning valve, why it would be leaking out this little bitty pin, heck, it wasn't. This little top plug right here is where you could run two brake lines to the front, this one and this one, if you want to put two lines down to the front wheels. If you don't, you plug this plug stays in here. This plug was loose. Never noticed that it was loose, and it was leaking past that, so tons of bleeding was allowing this air to come back in when I was releasing the pedal, and that created a bunch of problems. So remember, if you're doing this, make sure your stuff is tight here. Well, I got it all done. The disc brakes, they work really well, and if you're considering doing it, it is a huge upgrade. If you think them drum brakes work, you're wrong. The disc brakes really work well. But the only problem I had in doing this thing was trying to get the pedal height is easy to adjust just by lengthening or shortening the rod. That's not a problem. The problem is pedal travel. It seems like the pedal travels a whole lot before the master cylinder is able to fill the calipers with fluid. Kind of weird. Almost like if the master cylinder is not a big enough bore. And I looked up this part number master cylinder. It's a big bore. I think it was 1 1/8 inches. And that's kind of as big as I could find. It's off like a 84 Mustang SVO. So, the master cylinder is probably as good as it's going to get. The brake pedal, if I lengthen the length of the rod, if I lengthen it, the brake pedal, it gets really good. It's got to stop, so the brake pedal can't come up any higher. But it partially presses on the master cylinder, and boy, does it ever! It gives you gives you a great pedal, but the brakes are trying to semi-engage all the time. I came back from the first test run, and the brakes were smoking up front. So I backed it off, and then the travel got really long, and so I just had to find a happy medium on the travel of the pedal to where the brakes felt good. So the conversion was good. I'm going to show you what I did on the air lines, the air conditioner line that I had messed up here. See if we can see that with the light. I just put a 90 on here, tucked up all real nice within there, and there's plenty of room to go back up in there. Sliding's kind of crummy, but you can see it goes in there. So, I hope this video is helpful. Y'all have fun.